Welcome to this week's edition of MIAA 360. Broadcasting live inside of the MIAA Network studio, I'm Ben Ferris. Coming up a little later in the show, we head to Topeka, Kansas, where we got a chance to sit down with Washburn's former men's basketball head coach, Bob Chipman. During our interview, we discuss his history at the university and what life is like after coaching. And then, we'll tell you a little bit about the best hotel to stay at during the MIAA's Basketball Championship Tournament. But first, we head to Missouri Western University, where we got a chance to sit down with the Griffons' head softball coach, Jen Bagley Trotter.
Coach, start of the season is just around the corner. Talk a little bit about the amount of work that goes in the overall off-season conditioning program of preparing for the beginning of a season.
Well, it's much more work for our student athletes than it is for us coaches, because they're the ones that are in the weight room and doing all the different running and things. Our strength and conditioning coach is phenomenal, and but what makes him good is how hard he pushes our athletes. So they've been through it by this point in time in the season. They've been through it, and it's almost like practice is fun now because they're not in the weight room as much. And then it's just dealing with the weather, making sure, watching weather and trying to get outside as much as we can. And right now we're currently practicing early in the morning just because of facility usage and class times and all that stuff. So it's a lot of work to get to this time, but then when we start playing, it's all worth it.
573 wins, 16 seasons as a coach. I think that averages out to about 36 wins a year. It's the most among active MIAA coaches, second most all time. Your teams have won MIAA regular season championships, MIAA tournament championships, 10 NCAA tournament appearances over your 16 years. What are some of the keys to building that type of program that enjoys that much success for that long a period of time?
Probably the biggest key is just really stick true to wanting to have good people in your program. I think sometimes we can all get allured by the shiny stuff, and I think really knowing what our program wants to be about and trying to recruit kids that fit that mold has made those wins really pretty easy. I've had some really good athletes. They've been great in the classroom, great in the community, have completely bought into our program. And that's what our success is really based on, is the fact that we're able to recruit good kids, love the crap out of them while they're here, and watch them perform.
You've also been recognized as the MIAA Coach of the Year 4 times. I know you probably want to attribute some of that success to your fellow coaches and even the student athletes being part of that process.
Oh, for sure. When those Coach of the Year awards always feel good because they're voted on by your peers, and you'd be silly to take that and kind of shrug it off, because that does feel good. But that is an award that happens at the top of a pyramid of a lot of stuff underneath, and from assistant coaches that have worked within our program and have done whatever we needed them to do, to our facilities people that are doing all the things behind the scenes to make sure our uniforms are clean and all that stuff. It's a huge moving piece, and then you add in all the student athletes that, if you don't win games, you don't get Coach of the Year. So you got to have good kids that are willing to fight on the field too. So those are always fun.
You have other roles here on campus, not just the softball coach. You have other duties. Tell us a little bit about those and how and the challenges of balancing those commitments to your softball program.
I actually kind of think that it helps. I think, and on any given year, my responsibilities have been a little bit different, depending on who our administrative leader is, and we've had a few in my time. I'm old enough to say I've worked for 5 ADs now. But everybody, I've been utilized in different ways, and I enjoy it. I think it gives me work balance. We talk about balance, but it gives me work balance. Being able to teach our University 101 class with all of our student athletes allows me to get to know all the student athletes in all the different programs. And for me, that's really enjoyable, because I do go to all the different games, and it's fun to see those kids in those programs be successful too. And there are times when it gets a little bit hairy, because I'm busy in two ways, in the season, and then having to do with some of my other responsibilities. But I kind of think, for me, it helps me keep informed with what's going on in our campus community, and I think that in the long run has helped my program too.
You've been, and this might be a tough question because there's been a lot of years, but what is kind of a favorite memory maybe is from your coaching career?
There are quite a few. Anybody close to our program knows that our program is full of characters. And, I think a lot of the hard laughs and things that happen with different kids and different things that have happened, those will always go down as my favorites. But when you talk about coaching moments, I think about the time that Brittany Douglas was struggling, and, she got up. We were playing Central Missouri in a regional game. And she hit a walk-off home run that I think is still sailing. After I had to get into her a little bit about, making sure she's swinging with confidence and swinging the bat hard. And I mean, the smile on her face running the base was that was pretty special. Winning our first conference tournament championship was really special. And I think then followed up by being able to win the regular season and conference tournament championship in the same year with that group of kids, that was a lot of fun too. There's been a lot. I'm old, Larry, so they add up.
Well, hey, we're trying to be about the student athlete experience here in the MIAA, and I think one of the things we've done, and this is really kind of an initiative driven by the coaches, is elevate like the site of our conference championship, and the fact that we've been in Oklahoma City for the last few years. I know when the first year when the buses arrived, I saw the kids getting out and start taking pictures. That had never happened before. I knew we were in the right place.
Oh, I get chills thinking about it, honest to God. That was the year that we won the tournament that year. And I just remember always feeling as though our championship had more to offer. And when we moved to Oklahoma City, I thought, okay, if I was a student athlete here, this is the experience we want to give them. And playing on the biggest venue, the most hallowed field in our sport, that was pretty neat. And I remember walking on the championship field and having a little softball geek out moment myself. I'm like, whoa, this is pretty neat. And, the way that they handled the video board and the announcing and everything was so professionally done that there can't be a student athlete leaving that experience thinking that there was something else we could have done to make that experience great. They really do a good job there.
Going back to your days as a former student athlete softball player, you were a pitcher. Obviously, that role, you touched the ball on every pitch, every play. You're involved at 100% level. Is that why you selected to become a pitcher, or was there other reasons?
Actually, the reason I first started to pitch was because, and I actually have this documented in a news clip my mom had put in a little scrapbook for me, but I was actually running track. And I didn't start playing softball till I was in 8th grade. And my high school PE teacher came up to me and said, well, you're the biggest kid in 8th grade. I want to teach you how to pitch. And really, that nicely said too. And then he started teaching me how to throw. And I didn't know much about the sport. And in that time, travel ball wasn't a big deal. It wasn't like it is today. The opportunities weren't like they are today, especially not in northern Minnesota. But he worked with me and taught me how to pitch. And then once I got bit by it, it was a done deal.
I think obviously competing at the collegiate level as a softball player helps to give you probably a special kind of a unique feeling for what your players are going through as their experiences as student athletes. Does that help you as a coach?
Oh, I think it does. I think it does because, on both sides, on one hand, I can empathize with how difficult it can sometimes be to balance. And I can empathize how, some days it's a struggle to go to practice. But on the other hand, I also know that I don't want them ever walking away from a day or a season or a career thinking that there's something else they could have done better. And so that drives me to push them every day because I don't want them to ever have regret. And part of them not having regret is me being able to motivate them and push them every day.
You mentioned balance a minute ago. At the NCAA Division II level, we talk about life with a balance. How about for student athletes, but and how about from a coach's perspective? You have a family at home, a husband, 3 children. You have a lot of responsibilities here. How do you attain life in the balance? And can you?
It becomes a team effort, and it helps that my family is an athletic family. So, my girls are in the dugout for their bat girls and enjoy being out in the dugout. They come out to practice sometimes and I throw them into the drills. And so they both play. So they both enjoy coming out to practice. And so that's kind of neat and special that I'm able to share that with them. But then, I think my husband is a coach, and to be able to go home and we're able to talk about our day, but we're also able to put it away. And I think that that's important. We love to do things as a family that have to do with athletics. We love to go to games and do all that stuff. That's part of our life, part of who we are. But I think it's really fun that we're able to do things away from it too. But you're right, getting laundry done is tough. And during season, getting laundry done, having to grocery shop, all of that stuff, pack, make sure the kids are good to go off to school, and shuttling kids around because they get busy. They're involved in athletics, so we're chasing them around. It can be hard.
You mentioned that your husband's also a coach. Does that help give him, that perspective exists so your spouse understands what you're going through sometimes?
Yes.
Where if you were married to somebody that wasn't in that type of profession, wouldn't have that special understanding?
Yes. And I got some words of advice way back when I worked under Coach Cheek at Humboldt State. And he said that if your spouse doesn't understand what you do for a living, either you're not going to do this very long or you're not going to be married very long. And at that time, I wasn't even dating anybody. So that stuck in my head, though. And, and I've listened to a lot of friends and a lot of colleagues have, different woes throughout their life about trying to keep that balance. And I think that I lucked out because my husband and I can sit and he helps me and I help him, and we talk through situations, and it isn't, he loves being involved in it. And I think I'm lucky, I know that.
Last question. If one of your student athletes or even someone else from the campus would approach you and say, hey, Coach, I'm thinking about a career in coaching, what are some of the pieces of advice you might give them?
First of all, it's the best gig running. I think, some people are like, oh, this coaching stuff, it's so hard. It is, but at the end of the day, we coach a sport. We don't have our finger on a nuclear button. We don't have people's lives, at our hands. We're around young people and motivating them in a positive environment, and there's really nothing better than that. So I think coaching is a fantastic profession. I think that it is what you make it, and I think that there's a way that you can do it and still have balance, like we talked about before. It just comes down to not getting crazy about it. Probably the biggest word of advice that I give them is just make sure you surround yourself with good people, and you never know everything. And so don't be too proud to go and ask for help. Don't be proud to go and reach out to someone for some advice. And don't try to be someone other than who you are as a coach. Be your version of you as a coach. Don't watch a movie and think that's what it's all about, because it's not.
I said last question a minute ago, but really, it's wins and losses. Wins are important, but the fact that you are in a position where you can impact young people's lives, that's got to matter. Oh,
it does. It does. And I always say my favorite time of the year is alumni weekend. And they all come back, and watching these young women come in, as I always call them affectionately, stupid freshmen, because they are. They don't know anything when they come in, from how to do their own laundry to just being responsible for themselves as humans. And to take them from that point, that stage in their life, to the point where they're interviewing for jobs and getting their first real life job and getting married and having families and everything. I think being a part of that transition period in their life is that's pretty special.
Now let's head over to Topeka, Kansas, where we got a chance to sit down with Washburn's former men's basketball head coach, Bob Chipman. Let's see what led Coach Chipman to the Ichabods.
It seems like yesterday, so I can really remember this because it's gone by so quickly, but Ed Head, former K-Stater, was the athletic director at the time at Washburn, and he knew of me through my graduation at K-State and knew I was available. Glenn Kafer, the head coach at Washburn, looking for an assistant, so kind of happened late in August, and I actually turned down and got out of a high school job to come to Washburn, but got to credit Ed Head, and of course Glenn Kafer gave me my first chance, so that was great. I mean, to start out at the college level, at this level of play in Topeka, Kansas, what a tremendous place. I think I noticed it early, and that's probably why I never left. Great place.
Well, when you first came on board, you weren't just the assistant basketball coach. You had other roles there.
Exactly. I mean, back in the day, you were hired as a teacher first, and that was very important to me. And really, before that, I was still thinking maybe teaching is the way to go, but obviously my background, Kansas State with Coach Hartman, I kind of slowly figured out that, man, he's given us a great basketball education. I know as much basketball as some of these other guys. So, the basketball right away after I got there became very important. I mean, you're hired as a teacher, but the basketball coaching and the recruiting was the most important part of your job. Glenn Kafer was a great coach to learn under. What a fabulous coach. Coach Hartman, and just the teaching was fun, thoroughly enjoyed it. It's one of those where you don't know how you do all that, teach 9 hours, assistant basketball coach, head women's softball coach, then eventually the men's tennis coach for a while, teaching 9 hours in physical education, of course, the 3 years as Coach Kafer's assistant. Man, it was fun, but it was a full day.
Well, in addition to your playing career, in your 41 years in coaching, talk about a little bit how the game changed, the players changed, how you changed your coaching approach over all those years.
I mean, it's just recently. I mean, one of the frustrating things for me, because I was always get right at them and tell them exactly what I wanted and sometimes I'd say it probably in a fashion that maybe they didn't enjoy much, but I was just trying to get my point across. And, now with the social media, kids are on their phones. Kids they're really not used to anybody confronting them or talking to them. Like, I kind of joked toward the end of my career, rather than get in Brady's face and say, "Come on, Brady, give me a rebound," and kind of right in his face, I'd have to text message him, "Brady, would you please get me a rebound?" And they'd respond to that, "Oh yeah, okay, yeah, I got that." But when you get up in them, they're just not used to that confrontation. So I think that's the biggest change. Obviously, players have got more athletic. Obviously, freedom of movement. Basketball's come a long way. There's so much fun with the three-point shot, the high flyers, the athleticism. Back when I played and when I started coaching, I mean, you could have the 4-hour practices. I'm not saying I had Clydesdales that could go all day, but kids were used to that. And nowadays, I mean, we're more high tech, limited practices. All the stretching, the nutrition, practice, the practice method where you just beat on them all day for 4 hours. Obviously, that has really changed. I still tried to, through my coaching career, make practice very competitive, harder than games. I don't think that should ever change for coaches. If it does, the coach is going to be in trouble. But obviously there has been, some of those other things that I think are great for basketball. It's so much fun to watch players play rather than get beat on now. So the physicality definitely has changed.
You mentioned a few players already. Obviously, you had a chance to coach your son, Bobby. That had to be a pretty special opportunity for you.
Yeah. The only regret I have in coaching is I just wish I would let Bobby shoot it more. I always made him do all the dirty work. And bless his heart, stepping everybody's way, taking charges, going after every ball on the board, being the first one there in practice, staying the latest guy in practice, always making sure we had a good practice. Bobby was my favorite player of all time. I love those memories with him. As a sophomore at KU, he has 14 points in 17 minutes against the Morris twins. As a senior at KU, he has 7 points, 13 boards against Macklemore and Withey, and we almost beat him. So Bobby was pretty good. And, I wish I would let him shoot it more, but he won a championship. He, like he said, played with an unbelievable group of guys. They still get together. Will McNeil, one of the great players ever. Bobby's got his mom's brain, thank goodness. So Bobby's an attorney. He's got his MBA. He's got his law. He's got his CPA. He just passed the California bar and transferred out the Posinelli office. He's been there 1 year, transferred out to the Posinelli office in LA. And I just got to drive him out there. And so I'm getting to do a lot of special things. But there's the most special thing we haven't talked about yet, that my daughter Kelsey gave birth to twin grandsons. So that's been the most special thing. I mean, Bobby's taking a little back seat here. Kelsey's the most important one this year.
Well, obviously, you mentioned your family, and I want to talk about that for a second. Obviously, the job you had, very demanding, time, etc. Talk about the support your family provided you when you're in that process.
Yeah, Washburn's got a great coach now, Brett Ballard. There's going to be other great coaches after him here at Washburn. They're going to have great coaches, but they're never going to have a greater family than my family. Carol, I proposed to her at Washburn Athletic Banquet. I said something like, we're currently negotiating a lifetime no-cut contract. I guess I proposed to her when I said that. And then Bobby was born the last day of a season. We just lost at Baptist, a great team. Kelsey was born the first day of practice. Dick Vitale had just been in for late night. So they started with the basketball, and it's been that way for 40 years. I mean, just incredible support. They've always been there. Bobby played for me. Kelsey's my greatest fan, my rock. Carol, of course, has given up everything to invest in not only my team, but all my players on my team. She's been their mom away from home. And to go out senior night the other night, you know, Kelsey with the twins were there. Bobby was in California. He couldn't be there, but Carol was there. I mean, we really invested. Even though we're not coaching this year, we've invested in this team, and we love those seniors. So my family's been everything. Could have never done it here for 41 years without that family. I'll argue I'm not the greatest coach, but I've got the greatest family, coaching family ever in the history of basketball.
You know, obviously some of your former players have gone on to play at the professional level, but most of them probably have gone on to professional careers in their adulthood. You got to be proud of some of the things you've seen them. You mentioned what your son has accomplished already post-playing career, some other ones that come to mind.
Yeah, just...
I mean, Coach McHenry might be one of them.
Yeah, Coach Mack, and of course, you know, still rooting for him, talk to him all the time. And he played for me, coached with me, and then, you know, it was just fun watching him win a championship, and it was fun being around him on a daily basis. I mean, in the competitive world of women and men and fighting for facility and practice times, you know, it was such a dream come true to have Mac there. Always working out, never had an argument about anything as far as facilities. But the thing recently, just with former players, a special thing that's happened to me the last 10 years, Coaches versus Cancer out in Las Vegas. Lon Kruger puts this event together. Unbelievable things, millions of dollars raised for cancer. The coaches come out there, big time coaches come out there. Last year, they recognized me for my retirement, and they all came out on stage, and we had 3 of the Final Four coaches there, Frank Martin, Dana Altman, Roy Williams. They all came out, congratulated me, a special event in Vegas for my retirement. But the reason I was there was Jordy Canfield, former player, pays for, one of my great point guards ever, pays for yours truly here to go out there. Shannon Kruger's in on that, another former great point guard. Dave Nelson, my first player I've recruited, Kansas City kid, Winnetonka. I mean, that was the group that supports me and goes out there. And so, wow, I mean, my former players, to watch them grow and become great dads and watch their kids play, but be so successful. I mean, I take a great deal of pride in that. And it's been fun, and they're around, and I still get to be a part of their lives, and it's been special here. It's been very hard to leave here.
Well, obviously in your 38-year career as the head coach, 808 career wins, one of the winningest coaches, not only at the Division II level, but in any level at the NCAA. What are kind of some of the keys to success and longevity as a coach?
Oh, wow. You know, I think a real passion for basketball. I think it's got to be there. I mean, you got to have a love for the game. You know, I started dribbling out in the driveway, shoveling the walk in Michigan and getting shots up. in 8 inches of snow, and when I was about 7 years old, and it just never stopped. And love basketball. I love to see players develop. I like to see, and I think that's maybe one of the things that's changed in coaching, unfortunately, is now we're one and done. Everybody wants it to happen in the first year. But I love the process of bringing somebody in and watching them get really good. I've always felt like I was really good at that, developing guys. Another thing is, I think I've always had the great combination of making sure that they were getting a degree that meant something, so after basketball they could go on. So I think there's a bigger picture than just basketball, but the passion, seeing how great players can get, but just remember there's the academics and there's other development also that needs to take place. And just that enjoyment of seeing that happen. Winning, always love the winning. And the losses hurt so bad that, and stayed, would beat myself up so many times. And the competitiveness I had, which I don't let a lot of people see, because I'm kind of a different guy in front of the camera and today than I am at practice or in games. But you've got to be a fierce competitor. And if you can teach people how to do that, to work hard, keep improving every day, compete every day, that's kind of what I did, and that's what I enjoyed. And I do miss that part of it. I really do miss that part of it.
Well, part of your success, I think you had 16 national tournament appearances, 4 of which were at the NEI level, because when you became the coach originally at Washburn, you were competing in the NEI and you won a national championship during that time period. Talk about that. Yeah,
it was wonderful. I mean, all of a sudden, it was an hour from Topeka. We got 4,000 or 5,000 fans going down to Kemper, play 5 games in 5 nights. And again, that was with the Tom Meyer, Rob Riley group, some local kids from Hayden, and Greg Wilson from Topeka High, and the Downing twins, Atchison. So it was so much fun, to do it for Washburn, to do it for Topeka, to do it, you just felt a great sense of pride. That was fun. The one that I'm still, and hopefully you can campaign for, was when we finished second in 2001 to Kentucky Wesleyan. And of course, they had to forfeit all those games that year and the 2 years previous to that. We feel like we should hang that banner too. And that was with some local guys, also Shannon Kruger's team. So, that was fun. So, yeah, a couple great runs. Really thinking that this year's team that I left would have a chance, and still do have a chance at that. I think they're good enough. I was hoping that they could make one of those serious runs, but that's what it's all about. Everybody wants to win it all. Everybody wants to finish that last year on a victory, and it's very hard to do.
With the MIAA Basketball Championship Tournament coming up in the next couple of weeks, you might be looking for a place to stay. If you're looking for one of Kansas City's best hotel experiences, look no further than downtown Kansas City's Marriott Hotel. Located directly across Barney Alice Plaza from Municipal Auditorium, the Marriott is only a short walk away from the Power and Light District, the city's premier entertainment, nightlife, and dining district. The Marriott also includes luxurious accommodations, various hotel restaurants, and for those looking to break a sweat, a modern fitness center and indoor lap pool. The Marriott has a variety of rooms to choose from, including a double-double guest room, a king guest room, the hospitality suites, and the junior suites. To get the most out of your MIAA Basketball Championship Tournament, book your stay at the downtown Kansas City Marriott Hotel. Well, that's our show for this week. From all of us here at the MIAA Network Studio, I'm Ben Ferris. Thanks for watching, and until next week, bring your A game.